Good afternoon, and welcome to the Voice of Wisdom. With over 60 years of experience as an investment banker, entrepreneur, venture capitalist, securities analyst, and advisor, Morty Davis is a Wall Street legend. In addition, Mr. Davis is an outstanding economist and highly articulate, incisive, and very entertaining political analyst and strategist. He's Wall Street and capitalism personified. The over 400 companies for which he has raised more than $3 billion over the years have created a countless number of jobs and exciting new products. Through the Voice of Wisdom, Mr. Davis explores, analyzes, and debates the most topical economic and social issues facing our world today. Joining Mr. Davis today for a discussion on the news making the headlines is Len Carter. Len is an investment banker, business consultant, and private investor. And now, Mr. Davis and Mr. Carter.
Welcome back. It must be Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. It's great to be back with you, my favorite people in the whole wide world, my fellow participants, cohorts in presenting this podcast that's an inspirational for so many people that write me and say how much they enjoy my wisdom and my input and my conveying of the weekly news and your brilliant participation and contributions that you make every single day, every single week. So thank you. God bless you. I love your comments. Keep them coming, even the ones that sometimes get me a little angry initially because they may be, I feel, a little too critical. But then when I have time to reflect on them and think about it and so forth, they actually make me a better person, more considerate of other people's opinions, and get me to rethink positions that I formerly held as absolute and now adds to my wisdom because I think about them and your approach, and then as I reflect, I learn more and more of the validity of your approaches that may differ from mine, and that's the way one gains wisdom and knowledge and makes progress. So thank you so much. I appreciate your input. Thank you, and God bless you. And so without further ado, I want to get on with this week's podcast that summarizes all the highlights of the news of the prior week. Inevitably, and always seemingly involves bad news, because good news doesn't make the headlines or the breaking into our listening habits or our media events, the front page of the New York Times or the Washington Post or the New York Post or your favorite news magazines. So I start off by apologizing for putting you in the funk that I was put into when I first heard the breaking news of the week. So once I came across two books, The Power of Positive Thinking by Bishop Milton Sheehan and the book by Dale Carnegie, the greatest non-fiction writer, called Stop Worrying and Start Living, that made such a great impact on me. And I never went into a funk again about the depressing events that were occurring all around me during the Great Depression, during my father's inability to even get a job or make money, enough money to feed his family, but lifted me up to, no matter what the horror, to accept that horror with graciousness and positive thinking, and feel a sense of contentment, not a high from a drug that made you feel even worse. Once the immediate effects wore off, gave you headaches and nausea for weeks on end. But contentment that led to you behaving in a positive way and thinking positively and acting positively. And ever since then, I've been content by adopting these behavior patterns. So thank you for joining me once again this Wednesday every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. and making your contribution, which is fabulous.
Thanks, Morty. So let's talk about this week. We'll stay within the country's borders, but still in the executive branch. Political power, presidential power, and political pressuring, which we have seen a lot, or at least a lot of people believe it's going on. So a couple things that we saw in the last week. One was the World Cup, huge event of
The World Cup, not cop.
Where we've seen, I guess, probably the most followed sport around the world, maybe not in the U.S., but soccer, or football as they call it,
Right.
is huge sport outside the U.S.
Yeah, the most famous worldwide competition.
Yeah. So we saw an interesting thing happen. Just when you didn't think soccer could get political, we saw the president ask the FIFA president to review a red card violation against the U.S. striker Folarin Balogun, if I pronounced his name right, where he was initially banned for a game, but the president didn't think that it was warranted because
A red card.
is a violation for some
A red card, which is what the worst
bad
violation.
boy violation. I guess initially they thought he stepped on someone's calf or with his cleats, spikes, which if it was intentional would certainly be a
Right.
violation. If it's accidental, then maybe not so. And,
Right.
And this is a game where people are running around
Right.
pushing on each other with cleats on. So
Right.
it is possible that you could get a foot
Yeah,
in
like
your
like
calf.
like American football.
Correct. It wouldn't be a surprise if someone got hurt or at least cleated.
Right.
Nevertheless, there was this, rules are rules, and umpires or refs, whatever, do make calls, and sometimes maybe everyone doesn't agree. Usually with any call, at least half the people watching don't agree, depending on which side they're watching it from.
I wouldn't say that.
Well, it's like
At least half the people
it's like-
disagree.
yeah, because you have two teams. So everyone who's watching this team,
No, but sometimes some of the people,
they may agree. Yes.
I wouldn't say at least half, that half the people usually agree.
So in this
Disagree.
case, the president did not believe that it was a violation and asked the FIFA president to review the ruling. And lo and behold, they reviewed the ruling and overturned rescinded it. Yes. So allowing him to play in the game that was an important game, so I guess the question is, and naturally created a firestorm of critiques with those who believe that political pressure shouldn't be undermining a tournament. So what's your take? Do you think Trump was right to speak up against a bad call, even though it was hurting a U.S. team? Or do you think that's presidential pressure, which crosses a line by interfering with rules of the sport?
No, I think if they did it if they rescinded it because of Trump's call, I think that was wrong, because the rules are the rules, and you don't change it because some powerful figure comes along and says,
Right.
you got to rescind it.
Right.
I think, since consistent with our own fundamental beliefs, that we all have the power and the right to criticize anything, he was okay to criticize it if he said, I watched it and I didn't think there was a violation of that deserved a red flag, a yellow flag, but not a red flag.
Right.
So by
yes,
interfering and by accepting that, it seemed like he was using the power of the state,
Right.
which has no business
Right.
in a sport, to change outcomes.
Right. But I mean, I think conceptually, I think I agree with what you're saying. If the refs truly just took his advice to mean, why don't you look at it again? But there were a lot of people who said it was a bad call before Trump opened his mouth. And now all of a sudden,
but the
president says something.
The only reason they changed it, it seemed, was because
it's right.
of the powerful guy that did
right.
it.
So
if a lot of people did it,
right.
it didn't change the rules.
Right. So do you think that, a president should just sort of stay out of stuff like this, knowing he's the president and knowing that, maybe his opinion carries a little more weight than the average Joe? Or do you think that the president has every right to weigh in like anyone else?
No, I would have, if I was him, I would have prefaced it by saying, I'm one more opinion. I watched the play. I didn't think it warranted a red flag, only a yellow flag, because that's the game. They got tangled up with each other.
Right.
So I don't think it deserves a red flag. I don't think he has a right to ask for a change, but he has a right to give that opinion.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't ask for a change. He asked for it to be reviewed.
Yeah.
But wink, wink.
Yeah.
I think everyone knows.
It's not like
he's not asking for a review to keep it upheld.
Yeah.
It is a U.S. team, after all.
If the Pope asks for it, it's not like you and I ask.
Correct. So I don't know. So here's another.
But I think it's inappropriate for the ruling to come from a political.
Right.
If it was for that reason it was changed, that's wrong.
Yeah.
Because he should have no more of a say than any other fan.
We only know what each side says and what it looks like.
Right.
But who knows? How about this for political pressure? The airport in Florida, 5 miles from Mar-a-Lago, which used to be called Palm Beach International Airport, starting this week, is renamed President Donald J. Trump International Airport. The ticker symbol used to be PBI, is now DJT, and it was renamed under a legislation passed and signed by Florida and signed by Governor DeSantis, who's not a Trump critic, not always a fan, but definitely not a critic, at a cost of, I don't know, I've heard like $6 million to make the name change. So the president trademarked the words Palm Beach and President Trump International Palm Beach Airport, and entered into a license agreement with whoever it is, the state or the FAA, I'm not sure who it is, to use that name. They claim that there's no license fee. The Trump organization claims there's no license fee or to be paid directly, that's the key word, directly to the Trump organization for the use of that name. So what's your initial take? And then I want to read something that's interesting. What's your thought?
I don't know what the Constitution says about that, so I
don't
can't
think there's
say.
any. I mean, it's more. I don't think there's any constitutional. I mean, unless it's an emoluments issue. But
Yeah.
but if there is none, then it's more of a precedent.
Yeah,
Historically, Kennedy Airport wasn't
Yeah.
renamed after John F. Kennedy until after he died.
Right.
And it's always been at least post presidency. Like there's a Reagan
After that
airport
died, yeah.
now, right? There's a Bush airport now, but they never in the time the president was in office. And I don't think anything related to a license agreement to use.
Yeah, but if it's not charging for it,
Okay, so
and
that's
he's making it available.
okay. That's what he says. But let me read you this because it's an interesting license agreement. So under the license agreement, yes, there's no direct financial compensation. That's the key. So Trump organization says there's no direct financial
Right.
compensation. However, Trump gets to choose exactly which vendors will manufacture and supply whatever branded merchandise is sold at the airport, and does allow the Trump organization to cash in on any of that merchandise sold away from the airport, including on his online store. So
That's wrong.
that's presumably a way to get money.
That's what.
So he can also monitor the emoluments clause.
That's an monument. He can't get that.
He can also monetize the airport's new name in any way he sees fit, and can license the trademark to any third party of his choosing. So he can.
That's an emolument. He's not entitled to do that.
So that's an
If
interesting.
he doesn't charge for it, and he gives them that name,
But there's the nuance. He's not charging directly to the airport, right?
Doesn't matter.
But is there a way that he's maybe
indirectly
making a
or
little,
directly, if
right.
you can trace it.
I think you can make a case for that.
Incidentally, I'm delighted to have Len Carter back again with us. He's a genius, as those of you who have tuned into this podcast before really have learned about it, because I repeat it often. Whatever school he went to, he graduated at the top of his class with honors and everything. He's a superstar, and I'm delighted that he agreed to join us today. I plead with him to come on. He's well paid for his visits to other venues, but he doesn't charge us. But his time is valuable, and he can't always do it. But I push hard, and he does it. And I want to thank you, Len.
Thank you, Morty. Always good to be here. So we are about out of time, but let's just talk
Already?
about. Yes, always as we're having fun. One other issue event going on this week is a NATO summit where President Trump is in Europe and discussing the news in Europe for the last 3 years, the war with Russia. I know we've over the past have had discussions on how maybe this could have been avoided and what should have happened, but assuming we are where we are at this point, and we have to deal with where we are, Ukraine has been considering, all things considered, pretty well against very well armed.
Not pretty well, great.
Yeah, and in part thanks to support and weaponry from the West,
Right.
sure,
Absolutely.
but a lot of ingenuity with drones, and now I hear they're attacking deep inside Russia, and
Right.
even though Russia is a huge energy and oil producer, it's been disrupted. Like 30% of its oil has been disrupted, and actually has to import some petroleum, I think. So, given sort of what's happening and, how the pendulum, how things swing back and forth, like we see happening often in Iran these days, where different edge, the advantage goes from one side to the other. Is this a time where, the U.S. you think could take advantage, and NATO and Ukraine could sort of take advantage of the difficulties that Russia's having, or should we back out? Should NATO and the U.S., not get further involved?
Well, Biden got involved because he had a way to avoid that. Now Trump is trying to negotiate with Iran, even though they're in a position not to negotiate and to dictate because they wiped out everybody. And Biden was given the opportunity to avoid this whole thing because Putin said, I won't attack Ukraine if you agree not to invite Ukraine into NATO. It's not like we needed Ukraine to strengthen NATO. It doesn't make one bit of difference. If anything, it's an obligation that we take on,
but Trump has to
without any benefits.
But error as that may have been by the Biden administration, Trump has to deal with it. And the U.S. has to deal with it today because we can't go back and undo that. So the question on the table for the U.S. now,
that's
NATO,
a good point, yes,
is given what's happening, is this a time, is Russia sort of at a weak point in the ebbs and flows of the war, and this is a time to, really try to take advantage of them, when they're a little bit down, or and ante up, or continue with the or have the belief that this is just an endless war and we should just get out of it. We shouldn't, let Russia do what it ever would with Ukraine, and we don't have any real reason to be there.
I don't think we have a real reason to be there. I think that's between Russia and Ukraine, and we shouldn't get involved in more wars. Contrary to what Reagan said and Trump says now, we avoid wars because either strength avoids war. We have peace because of our strength. So don't look for additional fights. It's not our business. It's not hurting us. That's for Russia and Ukraine to settle between them.
And if NATO wants to get involved because they're nervous that Russia's going to come into Europe, then let NATO do it.
Yeah.
That's one view.
And that's a problem we have with NATO because we guarantee to go to war on behalf of NATO countries if they ever get involved.
Right.
So,
but we don't have a guarantee.
We don't
have a guarantee to help them fund Ukraine. If they want to fund Ukraine, they can. Yeah. We only have a guarantee if they get attacked, not if Ukraine gets attacked.
One could reasonably say that it will lead to a problem between Russia and Ukraine, and
right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the argument.
That's you want to avoid that.
Right.
Well,
right.
Why should the United States get involved?
Right. Right. So, all right. Well, it's been an interesting discussion. We can continue with some of the topics next week.
We're finished already?
We are finished.
Okay, run out and get this book, Happiness Guaranteed, all your misery back. It'll be the best investment you ever made. I promise you. And if you don't find that to be true, I'll give you double your money back and you can keep the book. You can't have a better deal than that. And it'll be the best prize you ever bought for yourself. God bless you. I love you. And I look forward to being with you again. I love you all. Have a great week. God bless you. Bye.